Here we go. Hey, good morning, Keith.
Good morning, Brandon. How we doing today?
We are doing fantastic on Halloween. Just this week, I saw, I think it's an old bit of footage of you and your wonderful wife dressed up, and I think you had a wig on that made you look less than manly.
Hmm. Was I like a rocker?
Oh, that's exactly what it was. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was in a hair band.
Yes. Like 80s hair band.
Yeah. So isn't that the irony? In real life, I can't sing and I don't have hair. So I was really going way out of character on that one.
Yeah, I go as a clown every year. That's what I do.
I can see that.
So today, obviously, we're recording this on a Saturday before the election, and this election has been pretty hotly contested. We've had, looting and riots and this and that, and a lot of um, intensity around it. And so, wanted to spend some time just from a Christian's perspective talking about how Christians should handle elections in general, and specifically regarding, did my candidate win? If so, how do I behave? If my candidate lost, if so, how do I behave? So what say you?
Yeah, this is certainly going to be quite an election. Uh, the in a number of ways. One, I think you will have a long term impact because of the Supreme Court justices. One was just confirmed, but if you look at the numbers, specifically the ages, there's going to be another one or two likely added in the next, perhaps by the next president, whomever that is. Depends on where you fall on certain big issues as to whether, how that, it's going to be important regardless of how you fall on that, I should say. It's also stacking up, at least as best we can tell, to be very, very tightly contested. I don't think we'll have any hanging chads, but it could take quite a while, actually. I would not be surprised if it takes us a while to actually figure out who is the winner. And if the incumbent loses, how long will it take him to decide he will move out because he's now convinced he really didn't win? I mean, we could be talking about weeks and weeks of indecision, is my guess. And so there's going to be a lot going on, and going to what you're talking about, a lot of potential emotions. And with social media now, everybody has a platform, good for good or bad. Everybody has a platform to voice those emotions. And I don't know. This the month of November could be pretty tenuous at best, I think.
Well, you're a little bit more aged than I am. Is this the most intense political election year that you've experienced?
Yeah, I guess. We time has a way of making us forget the intensity of certain things or the emotions of the at the time, that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I think as far as if you talk about emotions, this perhaps is. It seems like no. It seems like, well, there's a number of other factors involved too. That you do have the social media aspect. You have mainstream media using social media affecting, the way people view things. You've just got a number of factors that we haven't always had, and so I don't know. Yeah, probably could be.
Well, it's interesting when you bring up social media. I heard recently someone say that social media gives you a small town feel with big city exposure. In other words, classical, stereotypical small town is everybody's in everybody's business, and you know this person, you know that person. But it's that reality is always limited because it's, in fact, a small town. But with social media, one post that you make or one post you read can just literally be read by millions of people in a matter of days, and it just has this big exposure. So we're like in everybody's business. So I may not have known nearly as much 20 years ago where my neighbors or people in other cities, other states, how they felt about this election or whatever. But now we can just put it out there. So whatever raw emotions are coming out election night, it's like I don't know about you, but my social media feed, when there's a presidential debate for the next 3 hours, 4 hours, it's going to be nothing but everybody's take to the left or to the right about that debate.
Yeah, and everybody's bias comes through as well. Two people watch the same debate, and both of them either have opposing candidates, and both of them's guy won.
That's right.
The other guy cheated. The other guy was clueless. My guy was sharp. He knew all the answers, and like, really, were y'all watching the same thing there? And so the bias comes out. And again, I really don't think we can underestimate the influence that the mainstream media also is using social media to affect our opinion. If you read enough of it, you can get really, riled up on one. If you buy that narrative, I should say, because that narrative is unchecked. And it doesn't matter who your favorite narrative is, it's biased. They've got to sell advertising and they know what they're doing. And so if you let your narrative go unchecked, then you can really develop some strong emotions towards whatever is already fitting your narrative. We don't really like to look at the dissenting view. We don't really want to go there. We just, double down on our own narrative.
Well, and you can, depending on what information sources you're using, you can do that quite effectively, right? I mean, you can literally, and this is something I've challenged a couple other people to do, is whatever your political persuasion is, find someone that is in your social media network that's on the other side, and then follow their feed or whatever you want to call it, and you can see how somebody can spend months only hearing things that reinforce their current thinking.
Yep.
And so we literally can have two different populations of people getting tons of information, but either side is hearing only information that confirms what they already believe. I'm trying to do this on the fly, but do you have an iPhone?
Mm-hmm.
The Apple News.
Yeah.
It's like this default Apple News thing is so one-sided. That's how I'll leave it.
Shocker.
Every article is one-sided. What?
I said that's a shocker.
Well, yeah, but I say that to say because I think you bring up a very good point that there's all of this passive information. So I'm bored. I've got my phone. I'm waiting for something. Here, let me check out the news. And the news has a political slant on it. Boom. It just, you don't have to go out and reach out for it. It just comes to you.
Exactly. And this is where it's different. You used to have to wait until the NBC nightly news came on to get your biased or unbiased, whatever. I think it used to be a lot more unbiased. Honestly, I think we can say that. I think journalists would admit that as well. But no matter what your source is, it's biased. You're just not going to truly find an unbiased source because they have to sell advertising. So I really like this one. But now, wait a minute. They just made that guy sound not too bad. I'm switching channel, because they know what people like. If you let your narrative, your bias go unchecked, then yeah, whatever's easiest to believe. And there's a lot of folks on both sides doing that. And all of that is only relevant to our topic today as it relates to the fact that there are going to be a lot of people who have entrenched themselves into their candidate, their narrative, all that. And if it doesn't happen the way they want it to go, they will be even more emotional than they would have been had they not had all of that going on.
Well, yeah, yeah. And when you go to look for an information source to give you some truth, you may not find it, right? You may only find things that are sensational to the point that it triggers you emotionally, thus keeps you locked in as a viewer or a reader, a subscriber, because as you said, it's really much more about selling advertising than it is um, putting out the facts.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where, on an individual level, and especially from a Christian perspective, we should value truth. And a lot of times truth is somewhere between the extremes that we hear. And we should value truth. We should also value our priorities much more than any of these other things as well.
Yeah, and from a Christian standpoint, um, and I know this has almost become cliche, but Jesus is still king, and we need to remain loyal to him whether or not our candidate loses. It becomes rather simple, and what does Winnie the Pooh say? I'm a bear of very little brain. Well, as a man of very little brain, I try to keep things simple. Whether or not Trump wins or Biden wins, for the Christian, won't we still just need to stay focused on serving our Jesus?
Yeah, and this is where I think we lose. It's easy to lose perspective in the moment, but if you look at you look at the situation where Paul was when he wrote from Rome, not the book of Romans, but the different books he wrote from Rome. You had this awful guy, this tyrant who actually tried to kill his own mother. This is the guy in the White House, so to speak. And all the time he's writing to people who are affected by the Roman Empire and all of that, and the ungodliness of the leaders and all of that. And the only time he talks about them is when he says to pray for them. That's the only time they're not even an issue. I mean, they're important, obviously. That's why we should pray for them. But as it affects the Christian's life day to day, presidents come and go, emperors come and go, prime ministers come and go, countries, world powers come and go. But the one thing that we have to understand is that the kingdom doesn't come and go. The kingdom is here and is going to stay. And as Daniel wrote in Daniel chapter 2, it's here. I mean, it will last forever. It will not fall. And that's where we lose perspective, because right now, this election, if you're in this country, this election is the biggest ever, in the history of ever. I just came from a country where they just had their election on the 28th, so 3 days ago. By the way, they had 15 candidates running. Can you imagine the chaos? And so they might be thinking, oh, this is the biggest election ever. Like, really, you could have the biggest election ever in every country every time. And I don't know if you can make a case that it really is or not, but for the Christian, you don't have to make that case or worry about that case because the kingdom is what really matters. It doesn't matter the color of your passport. It doesn't matter where your citizenship is. If you're a member of the kingdom, that's really what matters, and that's where the priority ought to be.
Well, yeah, and what you alluded to earlier, isn't that a great first tip? Whether or not your candidate wins or loses, pray for those on the other side.
Sure.
I mean, it's so hard to be hateful towards somebody that you're praying about. And in all of the back and forth, this side versus that side, I don't know that I ever see, meaning like, just to put it as frank as I can put it, even if you think the other side is vile and evil, all the more the need for Jesus in their life, yes? Right? Right? I mean, all the more to pray for them that Jesus would impact them in some powerful way.
Sure. I mean, when Paul said pray for those in authority, Nero was totally ungodly. Again, tried to have his mother killed. By some accounts, he married a male slave. He had Christians were when there was a fire, he blamed the Christians. There were Christians thrown into the. I mean, on and on and on. And he says, pray for this guy and others as well. And so we should, even when the others are not as they should be.
Yeah, and so you've got political opinions. If your candidate wins, how is Keith going to behave?
I'm just going to go about my business. I would like to think that no matter who wins, there's been elections where I was happy with the result. There's been elections where I was disappointed with the result. I remember one particular election result. I was shocked. I was sure this guy was not going to be reelected after his first term being a dumpster fire. I was positive that, and I was hopeful, and I was incredibly disappointed. What I do? Well, the next day went back to work. I mean, there's still life to live, and thankfully, there's still priorities that are way higher and way more important than who's living in the White House.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not quite convinced of what I'm going to be posting next month, but the leading candidate is just a series of posts about how your house is more important than the White House. What happens, right? But what happens in your family? What decisions you make individually in your life and as you lead your family is truly much more important than whatever happens in the White House. And I think we've lost perspective of that. So what you said is exactly the way I would answer the question if it were posed towards me, which is regardless of who wins on November 3rd or December 3rd, whenever we know, whenever we have an outcome, right? I'm going to get up and I'm probably going to go do some sort of workouts. And I'm going to try to love my family and be a good employee, be a good minister of the truth, etc. And that doesn't really change. Here's an interesting question for you. I think I know the answer. But has your employment status, financial status, however you want to put it, changed much from Obama to Trump?
I don't know. It changed the most during Obama's first term because of the if you like your insurance, you can keep it.
Oh, okay.
Lie. Literally cost me 5 figures. During the next term, that literally cost me 5 figures. It was, I'll admit, being very angry and very bitter at my president then. It's the only one I've ever felt that way about, and it was primarily because of things like that. But I mean, what are you going to do? And so,
what did you do?
Had to make cuts elsewhere and it has since. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but what he did, that lie he told, and that bill that got shoved through on a Sunday when nobody really got to see what it even was, cost my family greatly. I mean, it really has. And because I was very happy with what I had, and I was told, as was everybody else, if you liked it, you can keep it. And then got a letter in the mail saying, no, not only can you not keep it, to upgrade to what we will say you can have was going to cost me literally 5 figures per year in a premium increase. So none of that is relevant except this. If you're bitter and angry about something about who's president, I get it. Oh man, I understand. But again, what are you going to do? Some of the ugly, angry, emotional things we might see from others are really from a feeling of powerlessness. Like I feel like I have no control over my own insurance. I have no control over my fill in the blank. And that's where we have to make sure that we get control of those emotions. Self-control is the fruit of the Spirit, right?
Amen.
And that can be very difficult. Not because you don't like that candidate or that president, whatever. There's a lot of people we don't like. It's when what they do actually affects you in some way, and that can happen. I have found it interesting, though, that the people that during the last 3.5 years with the financial stock market boom, the unemployment at record lows, I found it interesting that even those who hate the current president, and there are many who absolutely, apparently, just hate him, have benefited.
Right.
Their hires are going up. Their jobs have been, more solidified and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, what happens in the White House is important, and it does affect everyday life. And I think, but it doesn't. But I think perhaps our spiritual maturity is seen not when things are going our way, but when things aren't going our way, and that's when we need to really be prepared to do the right thing, no matter what.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you being so transparent about that, because yeah, you and I would be wrong to say that the White House or whoever in whatever country we're talking about, whoever's in power, their policies and the things that they advocate for are not important. I mean, take what's happened with the coronavirus. Depending on who your governor is, may have determined whether or not you're employed right now. There's a lot of people, and again, I live in California. Our lockdowns have been much more severe than many other states. And there's a lot of businesses that'll never have either closed permanently, or it will take years for them to get back to where they were. And somebody says, well, I don't care about a business. Well, that business employs people.
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught this. I don't know how nationally spread this news is, but just think, here in California, we have Disney, we have Knott's Berry Farm, we have Six Flags Magic Mountain, SeaWorld, San Diego Zoo, some of the largest tourist attractions, and
Right.
and we think, well, yeah, but they're run by super wealthy people. Yeah, but there's somebody who sweeps. There's somebody who sells food, and by the thousands. And unless they found other, yeah, right. And unless they found other employment, they're unemployed.
Yep.
And so yes, there can be decisions made, whether they're at the city level, county level, state level, or federal level, that do directly impact individual.
Yeah, absolutely. And I travel a good bit, and I'm seeing this. This is not about handling Corona, this episode, but I see this on a global level. Like, this is affecting people's literally their daily bread. Jesus said, pray for your daily bread. We kind of gotten used to not really having to worry about our daily bread. We can stock up bread, figuratively. And there are a lot of people.
And toilet paper.
Well, yeah, there are millions of people who literally go every day. They live day by day, and it's affecting them in some really serious ways, which, all of that goes back to that what these people we elect do is important. And there are choices being made and policies being enacted that affect us on a daily basis. Even more reason to pray for them.
Yeah, and back to the hopelessness that you talked about earlier, that some of us feel when you were promised you'd be able to keep your doctor and your health insurance plan, and then it was taken away, or I understand the coronavirus risks, but I want to go to work anyways. All of these things that feel like you're helpless. Then the question becomes, if you're in those situations, is hatred, bitterness, resentfulness, is that the Christian answer to those situations? When something happens that you are completely against, but you really can't individually just make it change, what should be the emotional state? Where should the mind go?
Yeah, and again, that's really where the rubber meets the road, right? The crux of the matter is, how do I behave when things aren't as I wanted them? And again, I have to go back to what some of the writings of in the New Testament, which were written under, I think, surely we can agree, worse conditions. I mean, you can imagine now the U.S. is occupied by a foreign power. We are basically, any taxes we pay go to them. They've got people over here overseeing us, reporting back to the home office. The guy in the home office is the most ungodly, bloodthirsty heathen you can imagine. And what is Paul saying to them? Not, let's vote this bum out. I mean, like it's way less, it's way more civil than some of what you read on Twitter regarding a mayoral candidate somewhere, so I'm going to be preaching on some of this tomorrow, and it's kind of, I think maybe, and this is totally coincidental, although both are driven by what's coming on Tuesday. And I think if people are fearful and apprehensive and have some anxiety about it, I think that's probably normal. Probably should pray more than that, but I'm going to say there are three things that we need to do, and these three things come out of what Paul is writing. So Paul left Ephesus, left Timothy in Ephesus, left Ephesus under a really bad situation, city riot, and they got him out of town, but then he was arrested going to Jerusalem, and he warns the leaders in Ephesus, some really bad folks are going to come in even from among you. Things are pretty bad, and now he's in Rome and he's writing them, and he tells Timothy in 2 Timothy 2:4, no good soldier entangles himself in civilian affairs so that he may please the one who enlisted him. And that verse really stands out in the current climate. No good soldier entangles himself in civilian affairs. And I can't help but wonder how many of us are totally entangled in civilian affairs. When I look at Facebook posts and listen to conversations and things like that, those have nothing to do with the matters of a soldier. Those are all civilian affairs. And the analogy that Paul is using there is one that, so yes, given the political climate, the moral climate, and everything else, it would have been easy for Timothy and the others to, if you will, get involved in civilian affairs. So entangled with them, they forget what the master really wants. And so instead of feeding that, he says, look, y'all can't get wrapped up in that. You can't do it. And I think that's the overwhelming thing that we have to take out of this, is we can't get wrapped up in it.
Yeah, and keep our focus and our eyes on the real prize that we have been set here to handle, to stay focused on. It's incredible how I don't know what you guys are doing in Alabama, but in California, all the schools are basically closed and kids are doing this, online learning and all of this, right? And there's so many parents who are just fed up with their kids having to learn like that. I wish there was equal passion for Bible class, and I can't believe our kids are not allowed to go to Bible class, right? I mean, it's just, we're, again, entangled in some of these things that don't matter nearly as much as where our soul's headed for eternity. And doesn't mean that you can't have an opinion or make sure you get out there and vote and things like that. But we really should be able to check our temperature as to what matters most to us and what occupies this small space most of the time.
You're right. And it's easy to let that happen. I mean, that's why he wrote to Timothy. I don't think he just pulled out some random thought, hey, Timothy, oh, by the way, in case somebody happens to get more occupied with things of this world than things of heaven, just happen to tell. I think they probably were, and maybe even Timothy as well. And you know, and Facebook gives you pretty good insight. And as far as I can tell, there are a lot of Christians and even preachers who talk a lot more about politics and social things than they do about eternal things. And I think the same principle applies. You know, if you're going to be a good soldier, you can't get entangled in all this.
Yeah. So let me ask you one last question about this. And if your candidate wins, what?
Well, I said a minute ago, I'm going to make three in the sermon tomorrow. I'm going to make three takeaways. And I think the three takeaways that I'm going to leave apply no matter what. Whenever we find out who wins, the first takeaway, and this is all based on the fact that we can't be wrapped up in civilian affairs. We live in them, we live in society in the world. That's why we get so wrapped up in it, but we've got to do better than allow that to happen. Three things that we need to do. Number one, keep your head level. Self-control is a fruit of the Spirit, and Galatians 5:23. And you, according to the polls that we're seeing, we can expect that about half of Americans are going to be disappointed, and about half are going to be excited. In fact, I saw a scenario yesterday where even the Electoral College could end up tied.
Yeah, 269. Yeah.
So no matter which side of that you're on, keep your head level. No gloating, no angering, no whatever. It happens. I remember a number of years ago, and then I was kind of new to Facebook, and I really wasn't always using it very well. I posted a meme, a post-election meme. I thought it was funny, and really, privately, it wouldn't have been bad, but I posted it, and it actually offended some people. And that, of course, was not my intention. But when I stepped back and looked at it objectively, I thought, yeah, I can see that. I would much rather err on the side of safety and caution and concern and somebody else's feelings. And we've all been on the losing side, right? We didn't appreciate gloating and in your facing and all that stuff. Well, you know, treat people the way you want to be treated. So no matter how you end up on that, keep your head level. The second thing I'm going to say is to keep your eyes focused. Colossians 3:2 says, set your sights where? Not here. That's what we typically do that, but on things above. And so it really, regardless how this comes out, keep your eyes focused there. That's where they belong. That's what any good soldier is going to do. And then the third thing I'm going to say is we need to keep our heart tender. Again, from the book of Ephesians. Now, this is Paul writing to Timothy, who's in a really difficult situation in that culture and then in the bigger culture. And he says that we need to be tenderhearted. So these are things that are relevant no matter when we might say them. We could say these same things in 2 years and they're still going to be relevant.
Right.
But I think especially next week and next month, we have to keep our head level and our eyes focused and our heart tender. And we have to do that.
Yeah, awesome. And by the way, I'm going to do my best to post this later on today. If somebody is listening to this, how might they catch that sermon?
Well, it'll be live around 10:30 Central Time on Prattville Church dot something. I forget what our dot is.
Well,
it'll also be archived there later on.
Okay. All right, and we can just post a little comment or something that'll give that link because I think it's the timing's impeccable, and as you just highlighted, it is semi-ageless, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these truths given to us about 2,000 years ago were true then and they're true now, and they apply to so many areas of our life, but namely the arena of politics, because 4 years ago it was the most important election ever, And 4 years from now, it'll be the most important election ever. So this intensity is not new, and it's not likely to go away. And Christians have to keep it in its proper place. And when you keep it in its proper place, your behaviors around it will be kept in their proper place. We can have our favorite political candidate lose an election, and yet we can still be out there winning souls. And that is truly what we're about.
Yeah, kingdoms come, kingdoms go, they rise, they fall, and this one's no different. This one's no different. I don't know when this one will fall. If time will stand, history will tell us it's going to fall one day. But there is a kingdom that will never fall, and that's got to be where our priority is.
Yeah, amen, amen. Well, Keith, thank you so much. I appreciate your insight as always, and I will see if we can't get some traffic to listen to you tomorrow.
All right. No need to tune in now, right? They just heard the main takeaways. Actually, there's gonna be a lot more than that, but yeah.
Well, yeah, and there's going to be a joke or two in there, I'm sure.
Maybe.
Tune in for the jokes. Tune in for the jokes. Well, from the Steelers fan who's not a Steelers fan but who looks like he's a Steelers fan, to the Georgia Bulldog fan who's truly a Georgia Bulldog fan but doesn't represent in any way. Have a good day.
All right, man. You do too. Take care. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.